Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to this week's episode of the Legal Beagle podcast. This is the final episode of the limited series on getting to know Negretti Associates. So we've taken you through the cases that we've handled. We've talked about the staff here at Negretti Associates, and this week we're going to talk about what it means by simplifying personal injury and then what we charge for our representation. What we charge is sort of a bit of a taboo in our profession. I'm not really sure why, but I want to explain and be very transparent with you about how our relationship with you, the client, is structured and what you would ultimately pay for our representation. Let's start with that. And it's on our website. If you go to our process page and then scroll down, you're going to see an illustration of what we charge and how those numbers break out so that you, the client, are fully informed on the representation that you're agreeing to when you sign up with us. Let's first start with the two different types of fees. One is if we can get your case resolved without having to file a lawsuit. If we get your case resolved without having to file a lawsuit, then our fee is 1/3 of that recovery. If we have to file a lawsuit, then our fee increases to 40% of that recovery. And the reason for the difference is because once we file a lawsuit, the rules change, the amount of time changes, and the involvement in terms of our ongoing participation in the case changes greatly. And so to offset that, we increase the contingency fee to our clients. But remember, it is contingent on the recovery, meaning it's dependent on our ability to recover something for our clients. If we don't recover anything, we never send our clients a bill. They're never going to get some letter from us saying, here's an invoice for all the hours we spent on your case. It is simply a percentage of the recovery. Whatever we recover for our clients, we get a percentage of that. So on our website, there's an illustration of how this works. And the illustration is just using basic numbers to kind of point out how our fee would be structured. If we recovered $100 for our client, and we did so before a lawsuit was filed, our fee would be $33, 1/3 of the total recovery. If we recovered that money after a lawsuit's filed, even if we went all the way to trial, our fee is 40% of that recovery. So to use that illustration, it would be $40. Now that leaves a balance that's left over for you, the client. But I want to explain that it doesn't mean all of that is going to you, because what we also get reimbursed for through the recovery of your claim is what are called legal costs. Legal costs are what we spend to represent you, to get your case in a position where it can resolve fairly for you, the client. And those costs can include ordering a police report, getting medical records, possibly doing depositions and hiring experts if the case ends up in litigation. So those costs can vary greatly depending on the path that your case takes towards resolution. We don't mark up our costs. We're not asking for more than what we spend, but what we do in an effort to minimize what the client would have to spend out of pocket is we say, look, we'll upfront all those costs for you, and then we just ask to be reimbursed at the end of your case. So let's say we spent $500 on, well, let me use the same illustration I was using before. Let's say we spent $5 in cost on your case, and we got the case resolved before we filed a lawsuit. Our fee would be that $33. And then we get $5 on top of that. So we get $38 in total, right? So that leaves $62 for the client. But again, in an effort to be completely transparent, that doesn't mean all $62 goes to the client. There may be medical providers that are owed reimbursement. There may be health insurance that has an interest in the recovery. So there may be other parties that have to be paid out of that total recovery, and the client may not receive that full $62 difference between what our fee and legal costs were. So sticking with that illustration, let's say that the client owes a medical provider $10. So now it's $48 out of the total is going to the attorney, going to pay back the attorney for the legal costs that they advanced, and then going to a doctor that treated that client. That means the client gets $52. So to summarize, $100 recovery, $33 goes to the attorney for their work, $5 goes for legal costs, that's $38, Then another 10 goes to the medical provider who helped the client get better. That's 48. That leaves a balance of 52. And so that's what's then remitted to the client as part of their settlement proceeds. What I would encourage you to do before settling a case, before signing anything from your law firm, ours included, is ask what my net recovery is going to be. Now, that's an important term, net recovery. It simply means, what am I going to get in my pocket? You don't have to use fancy terms. In fact, we're going to talk about that in a second when we talk about simplifying personal injury. You don't have to use big fancy terms to be smart. You can just use terms that make sense to everybody. What do I get? What's my in-pocket amount? What am I going to walk away from this case with? It's nice when an attorney says, look, I got you $100,000. And you say, great, how much am I going to get? And they say, you get $2,000. Well, if that means $98,000 went to everybody else, that doesn't seem like really that fair of a deal. However, if you got $20,000 and you got to keep 8 to 10, maybe 10 or 12,000 of that, that seems like a much better deal for you. So make sure that you're asking the law firm that represents you. And I mean this for us too. Show me the breakdown. We want to be transparent. We do a settlement breakdown for every single case. We show our clients exactly what they're going to receive, what we're going to receive, what doctors are going to receive, or any health insurance or anybody else that may be owed money. We don't hide that for our client, or hide that from our clients. We share that with our clients. And then we make sure our clients have all their questions answered before they sign anything, so they're not left wondering, why did everyone else get money and I didn't really get a lot? We also do our best to try to be fair to our clients on the back end through our representation. So if we can reduce medical outstanding bills or liens, those are what providers would hold in case they treated the client without receiving any compensation. We look at all of that and try to reduce those outstanding monies owed so that the client does receive a fair in-pocket amount. We're not in the business of taking a case simply so that we get paid, so that doctors get paid and the client gets nothing. You're the injured party. You're the person that was the reason this whole case started in the first place. So it only seems to make sense that you would receive some compensation for what happened to you. So ask those questions, have those conversations. And then the illustration's very much the same. If the case involves a 40% fee where the lawsuit is filed, it's just the same breakdown. If you use that $100 illustration example, our fee would be 40. If the legal costs were still 5, that means 45. If the medical provider is owed 10, that's 55. That means you get 45. So law firm gets 40, doctor gets 10, law firm gets 5 for the legal costs they advanced, and then you, the client, get 45. That's an example of how those fees work. But it's not all in one. It's not like our fees and costs are the same thing. They are broken out. They are two different things. And our fees do change based on where the case is at. If it's a case that can be settled versus settled in pre-litigation before a lawsuit, or a case that gets resolved after a lawsuit is filed. Again, this information is on our website. We don't hide it. It's there. It's there for a reason. It's there to be transparent, to share that information with you so that you guys have a good understanding of how this relationship works. But before even signing up with us, talk to an attorney at our firm, whether it's me or one of the other very, very capable attorneys, about how this works. Make sure you understand it. Make sure all your questions are answered so there aren't any surprises at the end. Now, switching gears and talking a little bit about simplifying personal injury. The reason we adopted this as our tagline is because I think that attorneys in general overcomplicate the practice of law. There really isn't a reason to overcomplicate the practice of law. We can use words, terms, explanations that make sense to everyone without having to sound smarter than we really are. And we try to do that. We fall short of it sometimes at our law firm because these are normal terms that we would use. But I'll give you an example. You may have heard or may be aware of a term called statute of limitations. It simply means the deadline that you have to file your lawsuit. Otherwise, you lose the right to bring your claim. In most personal injury cases, it's 2 years. It depends on where you are. Again, we practice in 3 states, so those deadlines are different. And it depends on the type of case you have. A dog bite case may be 1 year. But it's important that you understand that deadline, because if you don't file your lawsuit to preserve your right to bring that claim, meaning you're not protecting yourself, then you could lose the ability to bring that claim, and then there would be no recovery. We could just use the word deadline. It doesn't have to be statute of limitations. Yes, I understand that's the legal term, and that's what the law says we have to abide by, but it really is just a deadline, right? You have to file a lawsuit in a certain amount of time. We talk about words like pre-litigation versus litigation, right? Well, I guess you probably understand the term pre-litigation, meaning before litigation, but what does litigation mean? It means when you file a lawsuit, when you start the process of bringing the claim and involving the courts or a third party like an arbitration. There are cases where we file an arbitration case, and it's very similar to a lawsuit, but the process is a little bit different. It's important that you understand that. So we say bringing a lawsuit. You file a claim, you file a lawsuit. You're now formally making it known that this is the position of your case, and you're changing the way that it's structured. And most of the time, once you do that, you involve a law firm on the other side. Whereas before you file a lawsuit, you're usually just working with the insurance company trying to get the case resolved through their claims adjustment process. So when I say simplifying law, we try to explain things in a way that makes sense. It's why our illustration about fees and costs are on our website in a very basic form, so that we're not using numbers that people can't comprehend or that people don't understand. We try to explain it in a way that people do understand and can understand. And then we try to talk like human beings. We really do try to talk like people. When I say that you hire us and that we're different than that old school law firm that has the big mahogany bookshelves and these over the top chandeliers in their buildings, and that's not who we are, because it's not what I think people really care about. I think they care about connecting with the person that's representing them. I think they care that the person representing them actually cares about them. I think they want to understand what is being explained to them in a way that they can understand. Look, I don't pretend to be an expert at finance. When I talk to financial advisors, I want them to explain things in a way that I understand. I don't want to just shake my head because they're using big terms and I'm afraid to raise my hand and ask that question because I'm afraid they're going to think less of me. I want to be able to say, look, I don't understand what you're saying right now. Explain it to me in a way that I can understand. We try to do that every step of the way at Negretti Associates. And that's what we mean by simplifying personal injury. We try to make the process simple so that you understand things and that you're fully informed as we progress. We try not to make it a challenge for you to be represented. You have enough challenges with the fact that you were in the situation that caused the injury and the fact that you are now treating with doctors and medical professionals to get you better. The last thing you do is have an even more complicated process on the back end in the representation that you choose to engage in order to get your case resolved. So that's what I mean by simplifying personal injury, trying to make it simple for you, the client, so that it's straightforward, it makes sense, and at the end of the day, you get what we call fair compensation for what happened to you. So I hope this limited series has been helpful. I hope that we've done a decent job of peeking behind that curtain and showing you a little bit more about our law firm and why we do the work that we do, how we do the work that we do, and the people that do the work that we do. If you have any questions about this, don't hesitate to call us. All of our email addresses are on our website. Our phone numbers are there as well. We don't hide. We don't shy away from picking up the phone and having conversations. Please reach out to us. Please review the information on our website. Please ask questions. There are no dumb questions. And we really mean that. You shouldn't feel silly asking questions about the representation or about where your case is headed or about, why is this happening versus this? I ask more questions than you probably ever could think of. So don't be afraid to ask us questions when we're representing you. That's it for this limited series. We will return back to our normal Legal Beagle podcast going forward, including guest appearances and interviews with people that I find interesting and hopefully you'll find interesting as well. So have a great weekend. We'll talk soon.